I just went full Stephen A. I don't know if you saw that. He likes to pretend like he's about to go in and play 42 minutes for Tom Thibodeau and game 5, and he likes to do that before he goes and starts debating on whatever show he's running his yap about. And hey, everybody, live picks and roll. Sean Bernard coming your way, talking all things NBA playoffs. Of course, we got a 3-1 series over in the West. A pretty different story, a much different story going on in the East. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Knicks and Pacers. Pacers are 2.5-point favorites, 220.5. That's coming your way in just a second. But of course, last night, big time win by the Oklahoma City Thunder for them to take a 3-1 series lead. Sean Bernard, how was your Memorial Day weekend, sir?
Pretty uneventful, won't lie to you. Pretty much worked the whole time, so it was okay. Hung in there, relaxed, watched some hoops, watched some baseball. Overall, good vibes, can't complain. And kind of a little bit sad about the NBA officially winding down here. So we're hitting the home stretch of dive into the full NBA draft world, which I'm excited about that. But disappointing the action winding down.
Yeah, NBA Finals coming our way June 5th. It gets started June 5th, and then we'll only have one series left in the full NBA schedule season that took place all of last year into this year. It's a long damn season, and it's all coming to an end very, very soon here. Who will be playing? Who will be winning it all? I wonder if Sean Bernard already has the answer to that question. I'm pretty sure he could go ahead and tell us with certainty who he believes will be playing in the NBA Finals. The championship, we'll see. But I think a lot of people out there, including the odds makers, are ready to hand this bad boy over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's start there. Last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder went into Minnesota after getting absolutely smashed on Saturday, 143-101, a game where they were 3-point favorites in. And they ended up, like I said, getting just absolutely the doors blowing off of them. Minnesota comes back, 3-point dogs at home. Some people were trying to talk themselves into that. They almost got it due to a few free throws at the end. Tough break there. But bottom line is Oklahoma City gets the job done. Actually, I apologize. They did cover the number. Damn. Yeah, so if you did take Minnesota, hats off to you on that one. Nice call. I was on Oklahoma City Thunder, and I said, you know what, man, I'm going to roll with the Thunder in this one. I thought that they were going to win by a hell of a lot more of a margin than 3 points, 128-126. I guess the big question I would have for you right now, Sean, is this. How do you lose a game? How do you lose a Western Conference final game at home when you score 126 points? That's really hard to do and inexcusable.
Yeah, and to add a little bit more to this, that last night the Timberwolves led the game in rebounds, assists, points off turnovers, fast break points, points in the paint, second chance points, free throw attempts, free throw makes, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage, and they lost that basketball game there. That was a grown-up.
What did they trail in? What stat did they trail in besides the final score?
Yeah, points is a big one there. But honestly, I do think the Timberwolves outplayed the Thunder for the large majority of that game and gave them everything they can handle. That to me, the takeaway is that was a grown-up championship quality victory by this youthful Oklahoma City team. That I do think Minnesota pushed them and gave them their best punch there and played really good hoops overall. But the Thunder just have too much and had an answer for every little run that they went on there. I think Minnesota let themselves get down a little bit too much early, and it was never out of reach. It was only within striking distance there. I believe 11 points was the largest lead of the game, but the Thunder did kind of control where the gap was through there, and Minnesota was never able to fully cut that. So it got close throughout. We got the tie game, 3-point game, 5-point game throughout pretty much that whole constant second half, but they were never able to ultimately shift the tables and take control of that game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander showed up and looked like an MVP when it mattered, dropped 40 points, a Thunder franchise record in the playoffs there. So got to give these boys their flowers, that this Thunder team is growing up right in front of our eyes, and they just seem to have an answer for every single thing. Some little things like starting Alex Caruso in the second half over Hartenstein to go small and have a little bit more success, chasing Anthony Edwards around screens. They just have enough bodies and enough options to answer whatever is thrown their direction.
Yeah, SGA finished with 40. The question I would have on that one is, and again, it comes down to the final score. That's what it's all that matters is if whether or not you won or lost the game, especially when it comes to the playoffs. So here we are. And you look at the box score, and SGA went 13 for 30, 2 of 7 from downtown. Of course, free throw merchant himself, 12-14. Regardless, who cares about that? But man, 13 of 30, feeling like AI back in the day. But still, the difference is, as I said, number one, you get the victory. I don't care. Number two is he is the MVP of the league. He's going to get his shots off. That's what you want. On the reverse side, you look at what Ant did. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just brought up Allen Iverson. Iverson wasn't getting production from Eric Snow or Theo Ratliff or Aaron McKee or Dikembe Mutombo to the point of what Jalen Williams was doing with 34 or Chet with 21. So it was a really interesting point box score, box score from the points perspective, in my opinion, last night. What is your takeaway with SGA? Because, again, remove the whole it's about winning. Did SGA have a good game in your mind last night?
Oh, yeah, I think he absolutely had a good game last night, and it honestly, like, those numbers look worse than it felt to me, that it did not feel like he was chasing shots
Especially
or
in the
whatever.
fourth quarter.
Yeah, and throughout the game as a whole, like, I mean, we saw, like, the core of this Thunder team, which is Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, who both also played excellent. We got 34 points from Jalen Williams, who looked every bit the co-star that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander needs to be. Chet Holmgren looking confident, 21-7, hitting a couple really important threes in that game and showing no fear of the moment. And defensively, he was awesome as well. Had a couple nice blocks and just kind of deterrence at the rim that really made an impact there. So I thought the core of the Thunder stepped up, and that's all you can ask for. So while the raw numbers might not look great, in the flow of game, like, I felt like Shai approached things absolutely correctly. And if anything, I would throw more of a critique on a guy like Anthony Edwards, who did not come out looking like that. Two field goal attempts in the first half is pretty unacceptable. And, like, to defend him a little bit, because I saw his post-game answer here, he's right that they're throwing doubles his way. He's right that they're trying to force the ball out of his hand and not let him get opportunities. But, man, you're Anthony Edwards for a reason, man. And sometimes you just got to take on 3-4 defenders if that's what's being thrown your direction, and that's the best option for their team. Shai has the benefit of having a guy like Jalen Williams that can step up. I don't really think that Anthony Edwards does, and especially on a night like last night when Julius Randle finished with 5 points, 0 in the second half. That is the Julius Randle roller coaster that unfortunately Minnesota signed up for. But if we're comparing the two star guards there, I think Ant deserves far more criticism for not being more proactive in generating offense.
Yeah, look, over to Anthony Edwards, like you said, and his answer at the end was, "I made the basketball play, and I made the right move." And regardless, you're at home. It's just not good enough. You got to be in attack mode. Just no one's going to be upset with you. I would just simply say he's 23, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's going to have these issues. Every great player does. I mean, there were times when we were saying the craziest stuff about LeBron James, right? Like, go back, let's run the tape from what we were saying about LeBron James 10, 15 years ago, right? So he's 23 years old, and this is a huge spot for him. Western Conference Finals. Oh, by the way, back-to-back seasons, so not that bad of a start for the young guy. But at the end of the day, he'll know. He'll look back on this and he'll learn from it, and he'll be a better ball player from it. I wanted the Timberwolves to give him a little bit more for run for their money, but I just never really bought into it. Oklahoma City is damn good, and it does start and end with their defense, right? Like, this is why we have to look at this team. And they gave up 126 last night, and that's kind of like a little bit of an outlier. But this team plays great defense, top to bottom. Every player out there is above average defender. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
And that's why I look at this team right now, and it's hard to say that the Pacers or the Knicks are going to beat them, especially if this series gets extended tonight. If the Pacers lose tonight, and this is now 2-2, I don't think either one of those teams have a shot in hell at beating the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, and, like, the growing up that happened over this playoffs for Oklahoma City, to me, was that Denver series when they did go, like, toe-to-toe with Jokic, who gave them their money's worth and frankly deserves a lot of credit for pushing this team to 7 games here. But they are just so deep. They can go so many different directions. Guys like Lou Dort, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso, Hartenstein still doing his thing on the interior, who has not been as important in this series but was very valuable matching up with Jokic. And obviously that was the hurdle that they could not clear last postseason. So they just have an answer for everything here. There's some pretty good articles that you can read up on with making, like, a legitimate case for what a historically great defense this is. And, like, I mean, the numbers certainly back it up there. They haven't, I would say, performed that well in this playoffs, which has surprised me in this specific series referring to. Like even a game like last night, finishing with, like you said, 126 points allowed. I sort of expected this to be more of a rock fight this series where we're looking at like 100 to 99 kind of games and keeping it in like a old school style of basketball. But Oklahoma City's had an answer offensively as well. And the fact that they can do it on both sides of the ball is really impressive. So yeah, they are the real deal. For everyone that was just skepticism because of the youth, they are certainly proving them wrong. And I do think, like, looking ahead, regardless if it's Knicks or Pacers, I think the Thunder are going to be very comfortable favorites in that NBA Finals.
All right, moving on here as far as the game itself last night. And it was a good game. A lot of points scored, a lot of action. Again, the only thing that's on television last night, there was a Stanley Cup or Eastern Conference Final game in the NHL. I'll give credit to that. Carolina did extend the series there, but Florida's been just an absolute beast. People are tuned in. We're watching. I get it. At the end of the game, it turns into a little bit of the free throw shooting contest, as all NBA games do, as all basketball games do. 95% of them end in free throws. Why were we all upset? Why was the timeline buzzing last night? We need the change. I got people, who's the dude from Philly Voice? He was tweeting, or not
Adam,
Philly Voice.
Sixers Adam?
No, PHLY. Newbeck, Kyle.
Newbeck.
He's
okay.
like, Kyle, this isn't your first game. Like, I know you know the game. I know you know the league. Like, I don't know why we're all upset and open arms last night, and now we got to change the rules. And now we got to, what was your take on that? I get it. It wasn't the most, appeasing to watch. Understood. But at the end of the day, it's basketball. It's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, so as far as why last night, I think it was such kind of a talking point is like for the large part of that game, that was such an excellent just shot making showmanship there that we're seeing guys like Jalen Williams, guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was excellent last night, hitting these crazy shots. And then it's that build up all the way to what should be the apex of the game, the crescendo of the excitement there. And then it is just come down to free throws, which did leave me underwhelmed. And I think that was kind of the full feeling there. At the end of the day, like, sports is entertainment. So I get the case for trying to make it better. Like, I certainly would have preferred going to sleep last night after Anthony Edwards' game-winning attempt, whether it went in or not. And we ultimately did not get that. I certainly get the strategy, and the fair pushback is if you don't want teams to foul, then don't be down 3 points. So, like, going into this here, like, it makes sense when you're actually talking about maximizing your chances of winning the game. But I think last night was just a clear example of, like, that felt like so much build and building to this awesome finish. And then that was just kind of a letdown of an ending. But I mean, you're right. This isn't an outlier. This certainly happens all the time.
Yeah. I guess, is there something like, I just was taking a shot at people trying to change the rules as we often do on social media. But like, is there a case to be made that like that rule needs to change? We need to add something. There needs to be, if you're going to foul, you get possession in the final 20 seconds. Like, I don't understand how we can go about it differently. Again, it's just the way that these games play out. And, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, right? Like, Minnesota made it easy. They were catching the ball and the backs to the basket and they get fouled. Anthony Edwards brought it up. They got him 3/4 of the way from the basket. Like, Minnesota made it easy. I'm always a guy that's like, yeah, foul. Put them on the line. And they weren't even in a bonus and they fouled. Right? Like, they got to the bonus. So I'm always that guy. It's never, I know Tim Legler was on ESPN last night talking about how John Stockton got him one time with his hand in the cookie jar, and he ended up losing the game with Washington against Utah Jazz way back when. I don't remember a time that I've ever seen that backfire, Sean. And if it does happen, that's an outlier. So more teams should follow suit with the way Oklahoma City handled business last night.
Yeah, I think like what has changed or what's become more commonplace now is we're always accustomed to like when a team's trying to catch up to foul to like force misses and then take threes. What's become more commonplace is teams in the lead doing it to kind of prevent teams from coming back. That like we're not giving you a chance at a 3 to tie. We're putting you on the line for 2. I will say, and I'm not a head coach, and there's probably a reason for that as I explain this. I would not foul when I'm up 3 here. My personal thoughts is that's the only chance you have of losing the game. Like, if let's say you don't execute properly here, that a team is able to launch a quick three and you foul them on it. Then you're putting them the line for three. Say they miss that third free throw, get an offensive rebound, and they got a chance to win the game. And again, that is a small percentage chance, but it is a chance there. So like that's kind of my personal thoughts on it. Is like there is still risk in this, and like it has happened. There have been occasions where things do go south. The Pacers had kind of a similar situation, not quite the exact same thing, but where Halliburton missed a free throw, and that created a game win or a game tying three in the previous series here. So like there's a lot of different ways basketball games can end. I think like this will be a talking point, and it would not shock me if the NBA looks into a way that they can take this away. Just once again, because at the end of the day, sports is entertainment. And I do think Adam Silver wants to improve the product in that direction there, but I do think it's a little bit of a much to do about nothing.
All right, that's fair. Yeah, we always do it, and I get it. And maybe it shouldn't even bother me because it is just the way it works as far as the timeline is concerned. But I'm like,
we just had a whole campaign trying to get rid of the tush push like that. Like everyone's always critiquing rules. It's always going to be that way.
Always. You're right about that. All right. Oklahoma City and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Do you know the spread for game 5?
I don't. I'm going to guess 5.5.
8.5.
Wow. All right.
And I thought that was a little light, to be honest with you. I think they get absolutely the doors blown off of them. Oklahoma City rolls in that game 5 spot. Minnesota, though, they've proven me wrong. You know, there have been times where I'm like, they're just happy to be in that spot, and they continue to win. So we'll see what type of effort they put up. But I don't think either one of us are going to sit here and say that Oklahoma City will not be in the NBA Finals.
No, certainly not that. I think that's almost a guarantee at this point. It wouldn't, I'll say this, like it wouldn't completely shock me if you get one nuclear Anthony Edwards game to extend the series. I don't think there's any world where the Timberwolves win more than 2. That I do think Oklahoma City absolutely cleans this up. But I do wonder what the Anthony Edwards kind of self-reflection is last night as he's leaving the arena thinking and how that fires him up or not for game. But I mean, you mentioned it. He's 23 years old. Like I think that we've crowned this dude a little bit prematurely, and he's still an excellent basketball player. Don't get me wrong, but like we're still very early in the Anthony Edwards career arc and what he's going to become. And I think we're seeing a little bit of the levels to a guy who's the current MVP of the league versus where Anthony Edwards is at right now.
Yeah, Shea was pretty spectacular. And again, his box score wasn't reflecting it, but he's so cool and calm and just steady, had great handles.
And at the same time about the box score, he was 1 rebound away from a 40-point triple-double there.
It's odd. Like the 13 for 30 is not something that I look at and I go, thumbs up, but
sure.
Again, the win the game. I don't care if he shoots 50 times and makes 13. Win the game. He did enough. His team did enough. They're now 1 win away from getting to an NBA Finals, and it would be a lot of fun to see the Oklahoma City Thunder in the NBA Finals, as they've been the best team, if not one of the best teams in the league all season long. So here we are. Anything else from Oklahoma City last night? Chet, from the gambling perspective, I know that there was a lot of hot conversation about his point props because it's low. It's 14.5, 15, some shops, but mostly 14.5. He doesn't go over it every single time out. It feels like he should. I just think like his role, he knows, if he's asked to shoot, he'll hit him. But at the end of the day, man, he's a hell of a rim protector. You saw that swat at the end of the game was great. Your thoughts on the gambling perspective? Is there anything that you're seeing right now that maybe you'll take into the NBA Finals from a player prop standpoint, 3-pointers, under? How are we looking as far as that is concerned?
Yeah, the guy that I was pretty harping on yesterday on DraftKings Network there was fading Isaiah Hartenstein. And this is more for this specific series. That I just don't think this is the series for Hartenstein. Again, we saw the importance of him out in Denver. But I mean, looking at last night, he played 16 minutes, attempted 1 shot, finished with 6 rebounds. You're going to get those numbers. His point prop was 8.5 yesterday. The rebounding number in a similar range there. He's just not seeing the minutes to kind of get that type of production. So I don't think that probably we'll see what the overall matchup is and talk about the NBA Finals when we get to that. But for next game, I certainly think you can go that same direction, that this just isn't quite the series for Hartenstein. He knows his role. He's hardly looking at the rim right now. And I do think you can fade his numbers from a player prop perspective.
Is he going to be the difference for this team this year when they all do win it all? Are we going to look back at that signing and saying, that's the reason why they were able, like, again, it was real easy. They got dominated on the boards last year. They go out there and bring him in, and now all of a sudden everything has changed. Is that the ultimate difference maker in your mind from starting to finish if they are the champions?
He deserves all the flowers for helping them beat Denver. But to be honest, I would give Alex Caruso the edge for what he's brought to this team. And let's not
Interesting.
forget that trade, the Josh Giddey for Caruso trade that brought plenty of heat this offseason. Caruso has swung so many of these playoff games. And I mean, even last night, led the bench with 10 points, played 33 minutes off the bench there, had a pair of steals. He was a +8 and a 2-point victory there. That's kind of the Alex Caruso story. And I mean, he's been impactful from start to finish. You see the trust that they show in him with kind of the expanded minutes. And he also did an excellent job guarding Jokic himself in that past series. So Caruso has been a little bit of a Swiss Army knife that they've been able to plug in a ton of different directions. We know that this dude has a championship ring on his finger already. He is a guy who's built for the big moments and like is a perfect winning basketball player. So I think he's been an excellent addition to this team and an even bigger difference maker.
I like that answer. Great stuff, Sean Bernard. Let's keep it moving. And now let's talk about the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. And damn it, it's never happened before. Teams that were down 0-3 have never come back to win this series. I think there's only been 3 times a game 7 was forced in NBA playoff history. So the Pacers had the opportunity to put the foot on the throats of the New York Knicks up by 20 and coughed it up and lost the game. Now they still lead 2-1. This is a lot of people, including Sam Ostry, said that this series is going 7. Well, comes down to tonight's game now. Before we talk a little bit more about tonight's game, let's hit the rewind button and talk a little bit more about what took place on Sunday night. And how do you blow that lead? How is that even possible for the Pacers to blow that lead? And I get it. We've seen it a bunch now, and it's 20 points. It's the 20-point threshold that these teams are able to battle back. It's just amazing to me. But in that moment, with that type of buzz and that type of energy and the history on the line and everything that we know about it, and to lose that game 106-100, Sean, it's the same thing that I was asking after game 1, that loss to the Knicks. Like, how do you come back from that? And they did battle back in game 2. They ended up losing. The Pacers were the better team. But is that the type of loss for the Pacers dating and going back to game 3 on Sunday night? Is that going to carry over in your mind tonight?
Yeah, and if I'm making a game plan for the Pacers tonight, it is to not lead by 20 points. Whatever you do, don't let it get to that margin there, because that seems to be trouble brewing these playoffs here. But like, as far as how that game swung on its head, the uncomfortable truth here is the foul issues directly help the Knicks. That when Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns both found themselves in foul trouble, what changed up the game on its head here is it forced Tom Thibodeau to not have them both on the floor together. And what did that lead to? Is the Knicks playing their defense first lineups. We saw lineup combinations in game 3 that had never played a minute together across the regular season. That's desperation on the side of the Knicks, but it is something that worked out there. When they lean on their defense first approach, which has been sort of the identity of this Knicks team throughout these past couple years, that is where the game changed. Now, the challenge with that is Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson are obviously your 2 best players here. So how do you kind of balance that? That is why I think Tom Thibodeau is the guy with the most pressure of anyone in this arena heading into this matchup tonight. You're going to have to find a balance to that, but they had way more success leaning on their defense first lineups. I think they got to go back to the well with that. I'm not sure if he is going to do that, and we know how stubborn he can be with his decision making. But honestly, why that game completely flipped to me was because the Knicks got in foul trouble and forced Thibodeau's hands at playing his defense first lineups.
15 lineup combinations was
Crazy.
had by the New York Knicks in that. Yeah, exactly what you pointed out, where there were players that never played together, and that it was the first time we've seen that. And it all goes back to the fouls on Brunson, and then therefore a little bit of the desperation change up. And you just can't expect Thibs to go ahead and do that again tonight, can you?
Right.
Like, can you? Right, like you're saying, Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns are your guys. Are you going to sit them now in the second quarter out of nowhere because you had success in game 3? I don't think Thibs will do that, number 1, and I don't think he should do that, number 2.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he does that again. And that's kind of why I think the Pacers take full control of these series once again. That, like, Karl Anthony Towns, for as talented as he is one of the more maddening basketball players I've ever seen. And the defensive issues certainly speak for themselves, and we've seen that on full display. The foul issues, that is even more maddening to me. And it's one thing to be in foul trouble for a player. Like, in general, I'm a use your fouls kind of guy, that I have no problem with getting your money's worth there, but not all fouls are created equal. And Karl Anthony Towns fouls are never like hard contests at the rim where he gets a shooter's arm and prevents a layup, or coming across, getting vertical and getting body. They're constantly like 40 feet from the basket, shoving guys, or swinging elbow directly in the post. That's just the most blatant offensive foul. That's the stuff that just cannot happen for the caliber of talent that he is. And this is constant. It felt like he cleaned it up a little bit these past like year or two. It is on full display across these playoffs. I mean, he was horrible at that in the Boston series as well, but that's been like the Cat reputation and obviously like what happens throughout his career here. So if Cat finds himself in foul trouble again, which is a strong possibility there, I kind of think that would help this Knicks team tonight. But I mean, Tom Thibodeau like has to dive into the tape, take a look at what worked. And the reality is it is staggering these guys' minutes and leaning on a little bit more defense first approach. The Knicks can reach a defensive level that I don't think the Pacers can, but they haven't played that way pretty much all season. And it's tough to make that level of change now.
Yeah. And plus you're going to have old man Halliburton in the building. Wink. I'm sure he's been in the building.
I don't know. Did you see the video of him at the bar when the joke sign came out? That was pretty legendary stuff.
But that was in New York. That was in New York. You don't think he was in the building for Game 3?
I don't know. It wouldn't shock me like that. Obviously, and to be on record here, he should not have done that to Giannis whatsoever. But no. I do think in the larger part here, like John Halliburton has been a pretty respectful and like kind of every other time I've heard him, I've been like, yeah, he made a mistake there. He should not have done that whatsoever. So it wouldn't shock me if he was like, let me just stay out of the limelight and respect the well wishes here.
All right. That's interesting. Well, he's going to be in the building again tonight. And it's a fun talking point. Stupidity at its
How many
best.
times he gets shown, do you think?
Not too many, because I don't think, like you said, I think he's going to be laying back, but they're going to find him some way, somehow.
Yeah. They'll
find him. They'll find him in the beginning, and then, we'll see what happens from there. But he will not be on the floor. He's going to be in a suite, so that's good. All right. Well, again, they had the opportunity to really take the series over. They still are up 2-1. Comes down to tonight, because if this series does get tied up 2-2, not feeling really good about the chances of the Pacers. But again, long way to go. It all comes down to tonight. 2.5 point spread. I am with you. I do think that the Pacers handle business tonight and take that 3-1 lead here. 2.5, 220.5 is our total. How are we feeling about this one as far as the total is concerned? Do we think that we're going to see a little bit more defense here, or is this going to be wide open?
Yeah, it's interesting. To me, it's pretty fully dependent on what the Knicks do. But my gut here is that Tom Thibodeau doesn't make the adjustment and lean on what worked. That I think he goes back to what has kind of brought him here this season. That does play Brunson and Cat as many minutes as their foul trouble will allow. And assuming that there isn't any circumstances that dictate he changes that, which spells to me a high scoring affair. Pacers are going to speed things up. We're going to run. They're going to cycle through bodies. I do like the over, and I do like the -2.5 tonight. There's been a decent amount of points in this series overall. I believe it's gone over in 3 of the 4, if I'm not mistaken there. That I think that continues. I like the over tonight, and I like the -2.5.
Who is it? Who is it from the Pacers tonight? Is it Pascal, Siakam? Is it going to be a Halliburton type of game? If the Pacers do take that lead tonight, who are we looking at?
I like Halliburton to have a better game tonight. And if there is a fair critique of Tyrese, and this has been something that has sort of sparked up and limited his kind of ceiling in a lot of these discussions for where he ranks in the NBA, there are stretches where he gets too passive, and we saw that in the previous game there. They needed him to play in attack mode there, and he didn't fully do it there. His stat line in that game, but he finished with 20 points and 7 assists, which isn't bad, but you need more than 15 shots for the guy that is your best player. We got the Pascal Siakam game. I also like Andrew Nembhard to play a little better. We haven't had like a Nembhard game in this series, and he was really impactful in the last playoff run. Shot 2 for 9 in the previous game. I would make it like
game 1.
Oh, game 1. Yeah. But I mean, like last playoffs, he was full out like
that's true.
Swinging games and being one of the best players on the court. I kind of think he could be an X factor type of guy tonight. So Halliburton and Nembhard would be the 2 names that I'd mention.
I'm sorry. It wasn't Nembhard that went off.
It was,
thank you. Yeah, I'm an idiot. So you're right. I apologize. You were right on that one. I should have known better. Yeah. It's like, wait, hold up. Game 1, he went off. Yeah. What are we talking about?
No, that was game for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Forgot about that. All right. Yeah, Halliburton had 20 in the previous game here. Siakam 17. He was 7 of 14. They ran 10 deep. Your boy Shepherd they actually played more than 10, if I'm not mistaken here. But, you got to give the Knicks all the credit in the world for battling back, not panicking, and coming back and winning that game. I just cannot believe that they were able to do it, and they deserve a ton of credit. But that's the beauty about a 7-game series. You expend all this energy, and then you got to get rid of it. It doesn't mean anything now. So they're starting fresh for another game this evening. Pacers have the advantage. It's only 2.5 point spread here. We'll see what happens. From the Knicks perspective, where are we looking there? If it's not Jalen Brunson, are we going back to Cat, who had a big fourth quarter? Is there someone else in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think defense is the message here, but they also need Jalen Brunson to look a little bit more like Jalen Brunson. Like, even with the foul issues in the previous game in which he logged 31 minutes, finished with 23 points, 1 assist, which is really uncharacteristic of him, particularly across his playoff run. That he's averaging about 7 a game and has had double digits a couple of times. That he's been really good as a playmaker there. Shot 6 of 18 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. Of course, got to the free throw line 10 times there, so 13 points without the charity stripe there. You got to get more from the guy that is your primary creator. I think if the Knicks are going to win this, it's going to take a Jalen Brunson being heartless, being the baddest man in the arena. He's capable of doing that. There's no doubt about it. But we'll see what direction Tibbs goes. I ultimately think all this points to a Pacers win tonight.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one, and I hope we are correct because I would like to see the Pacers have an opportunity to wrap this thing up and not have to go into a 7-game series, and we'll have a little bit better of an NBA Finals, I believe, because they just don't want to see a team gassed, especially having to go to New York 2 out of the final 3 games. If this does go 7, that would not be good for the next upcoming. And, look, the chances are the West is going to be wrapped up tomorrow, right? So you're talking about an unbelievable layoff for one team and then another team being pressed to 7 games. So we'll see what happens. Who knows? Maybe that might be beneficial for the Knicks, but it all comes down to tonight. Tonight's a must win for New York. I'm pretty sure Stan Mostr would probably be saying 3-1, hold up. They still have life, but this is do or die.
Yeah, 13 of 294 playoff occasions team have come back from 3-1. So that 4.4%, great to ride on if that's what Knicks want to sit on there. But the bottom line is I do give this Knicks team props for winning the previous games. A lot more respectable to lose the series in 5 than getting swept there. So shout out to you guys. You can hang your hat on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think I was saying Pacers in 5, so hopefully that will be the case, and we'll go about it from there. But again, tonight, 2.5-point spread, big one for us to be watching here as far as NBA playoffs. And listed at 8:05, I'm sure that'll be about 8:33 off, so be ready for that one. All right, 2.5, 220.5 is our total there on DraftKings Sportsbook. Keeping it moving. Anything else you want to add on that series, on that game?
Not a ton there. I mean, tonight's going to be a telling matchup here. I'm very curious. Once again, like my main message will be here is the guy with the most pressure on him in this entire arena will be Tom Thibodeau tonight. And I don't think his job's on the line or anything like that. I think you have to view the season as a success based on where they got to here. But he's got some really tough decisions to make. And like everything that you look at in the tape and the metrics and the plus minus and where the game shifted, it all had to do with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson not both being on the floor together. So we'll see how Indiana combats that. We'll see what the changes that Thibodeau does make. If we see Delon Wright and Landry Shamet playing minutes again, because he has been so narrow with his minutes there. So I'm really curious about this from the Knicks perspective, what direction they go. And Thibodeau, obviously the man controlling the cards there.
Adjust to the adjustments. We'll see what happens, as always. All right, keeping it moving. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs. We have some other X's and O or other odds and ends from the league. We got the NBA draft fast approaching here at the June 23rd,
25th, I want to say.
25th. Okay. Yeah. It's a little bit later in the month. We'll be all over it. Of course, 76ers have third overall pick. Paul George on the podcast, having some fun. Pretty good stuff there. And Michael Jordan, rumors about why he's stepping in and becoming a analyst to a point on NBC. We'll talk about all of those right here, right now. Once again, picks and roll. Sean Bernard here. Let's talk about the 76ers, though. NBA draft. What are we hearing? What's the latest? Where are we at? Do we have this narrowed down to 2 players for the third overall pick?
It does feel like it's an Ace Bailey versus VJ Edgecombe discussion here. I mean, Paul George being quite openly in support of Ace Bailey on his podcast is kind of bizarre to me, and I can't imagine that's Daryl Morey's favorite move here. He's to PG's like credit / defense here. He's been hyping up Ace Bailey since the season. This was well before the Sixers had a legitimate chance at him. That he's been preaching how much he believes in this kid's talent, and I do sit in the same camp that like if I'm on the stand today, I still would be selecting Ace Bailey. It does feel like momentum has swung a little bit in favor of VJ Edgecombe, who I would certainly classify as the safer pick there, but he's also a little bit more limited in the level that he can get to me. I think the handle is a legitimate question there, and him being a 6'5" guard also shifts a little bit of what you can do from a roster kind of construction standpoint there. So I do think it is down to those two. The only other part that I'll add, there's an 11 million cap hit for that third overall pick here. Looking at the Sixers' entire financial picture, it would be very beneficial to them to move down a couple spots. And if they can drop to 5 or 7 when looking at the aprons and the windows, I'm sure Daryl Morey will take every call. For me, it's very important for them to walk away with like a real deal rookie, a lottery pick, a top end talent. But if they can drop down to 5 or 7, that's something that I would be open to if you're talking about adding a player as well.
Why are we not thinking that the San Antonio Spurs will take Ace Bailey?
It's been pretty universally viewed as this is kind of a 2-player draft, that it is Cooper Flagg, the clear-cut number 1, Dylan Harper, the clear-cut number 2. To be honest, like, I don't see it quite that way. That like,
Same.
it's weird to me that Dylan Harper kind of gets a pass for all the Rutgers stuff versus that's the number one thing that sticks to Ace Bailey. And if I'm going to be completely honest about this, like, Dylan Harper was the guy controlling the cards. He's the one that is the point guard that ran the show. So for all these offensive issues that you're sticking to Ace Bailey here, you got to at least kind of acknowledge them with Dylan Harper as well. Now, this is not me doubting him as a talent. I think he's going to be an excellent NBA player for sure, but I don't think the gap is quite as massive as some people make it seem. But from kind of the general consensus of the league, it is viewed as those guys the clear-cut top 2 picks.
All right. So if the 76ers end up walking away with a Trey Johnson or a Derek Queen, are we viewing that as a positive if they move back and are able to, like you said, get something in return for doing so?
Yeah, so the two kind of teams that have made sense, well, for starters, I mean, obviously a team needs to move up to 3. And unfortunately, it is kind of universally viewed, as I mentioned, with the 2-player draft, that the draft starts at 3, essentially, here. So teams got to want one of these guys pretty bad. If a team falls in love with Ace Bailey, maybe the Hornets or the Jazz, who dropped in the lottery and still don't really have a guy that's the number 1 star, that's something that can make sense. The Pelicans, who hold the 5th pick, is something that's really intriguing to me. We can talk a little Herb Jones in the 5th pick for the 3rd pick, and the money that it would need to work would be Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond there. That's a trade that I would accept 10 times out of 10. So depending on the context of where they're selecting, Con Knippel is a guy that I know our very own Mark Henry Jr. absolutely hates there, but I would be open to adding to this roster here. I'm not the biggest Trey Johnson guy or Derek Queen guy, to be honest with you. I like Malawak a lot more. Those are kind of the guys that kind of popped to me. I like the Duke guys, all of them in this draft here. And I would be completely comfortable just taking Ace Bailey at 3 if worse comes to worse. But if they want to do the dance and move around a little bit, as long as they're walking away with one of the top 8-ish guys in this draft, I can live with it.
Yeah, Danny Ainge owes the Sixers, right?
Yeah.
It's not the Celtics anymore. It's the Utah Jazz. Can he do some love? Can he repay us back a little bit for Tatum and Markelle Fultz? Can we get a little love back from the Jazz? But who knows? We'll see. Again, what do they have? 5 or 4?
5, 4. 4. Yeah.
The Jazz are at the 4. Yeah. Jazz are 5. Hornets
5.
are 4. Right?
Pulling it up now. Confused myself.
Yeah, I was probably off on that one. I mean, again, it's the draft, and I know we get a little bogged down on it, but at the end of the day, Sixers are 3rd. That's all we care about.
Jazz are 5. Pelicans are 7 is where I confuse myself.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's talk a little bit about Paul George, and he did have an interesting thing to say in his podcast. He's back. No, there's no NBA games holding him back from the microphone. So now he sits down with Carmelo Anthony, and they had a laugh. And after the Eagles parade, where we had the picture of Paul George getting caught in the parade, which is ridiculous in itself, he did say that, man, somebody yelled to him, we should have kept Tobias. And he said that hit him. And then Tobias took to social media and threw the record up after that parade?
Him smoking a cigar with 4-27 after the parade, which was the Sixers record by that. I did a fact check that, went back. He could have even gone a little deeper because the losing streak was going on leading into that. So if Toby really wanted to be aggressive, you could have been like 4-32 on the time before that. But nonetheless, he did start at that date there. I give Toby took a lot of grief while he was here. He obviously was not the right guy to get this team over the edge. It's not his fault the Sixers offered him a contract, and I do kind of tip the cap that this was fair game to take a shot here.
I agree. Yeah, it was fun, and that's what it's all about with the timeline. But it's interesting because Paul George, like Carmelo, was like, that makes you lock in, right? And it's just like, and I'm not trying to build Carmelo up, but I sure as hell don't think the comments from fans play into Paul George's mind and the way he plays and approaches at all. So he could sit there and say what he wants on the podcast, show me on the floor, show me on the court. And he came out and said he was dealing with a bunch of injuries. Yeah. Like, nobody wants to hear that nonsense. I will give a shout out because we haven't spoken about this either, but shout out Gilly. getting
Oh
on
yeah.
that podcast and saying exactly how I have been feeling. Let's put it that way. I'm sure in consensus across the board, Sixer fans are right there. But damn, Gilly, I respected that. That was some good stuff there. And you know what? I'll give Paul George credit for that, for having him on his show.
Yeah. Yeah, and, that was awesome, by the way, and Gilly, no fear whatsoever that
None.
even, like, him going in the Eagles locker room, the way he directly speaks to these guys, Quez Watkins wanting to fight him, all this stuff that has, gone on in the kind of it's Gilly's world we're all living in, and I love it. It's a better place because of that. But for the Paul George conversation here, the thing, like, obviously none of this matters until we see what happens on the floor, and nothing will change the perception until the production changes there. But I will give him a little props to, I like what he said. I've liked his responses to this. I do think he's not running from it, that he is just like taking things head on, that even in that Gilly conversation, he's like, you're right. I need to be better. We need to be better. This is not the expectation. And I think he's starting to get Philadelphia a little bit more, that, like, to be fair to the dude, this is a different world than the one that he's lived in. This is not Los Angeles, where you're on like kind of the B squad out there, with all due respect to the Clippers. This is not Indiana, who of course have diehard fans and are a legitimate fan base, but it is a smaller market here. There, you're not going to get quite the same passion or same volume of care that is here in Philadelphia. Oklahoma City, we're kind of in like a middle point of this franchise. This is the highest expectations that he's ever played in at the latest stage of his career. So this is kind of a change in the game. I think he's waking up to that a little bit. And again, it is not his fault for why the season went off the rails last year. If we're going to point the finger directly, that starts with Joel Embiid, unfortunately, in his health situation. So Paul George, I think, has at times gotten a little bit more blame than he's deserved, but I do love how he's responding, and now he's just got to back it up on the floor.
All right, Sean Bernard, we will end on this one. And this one hit me over the weekend. It was a long weekend. But Michael Jordan is going to take the television next season with NBC, with their new contract with the NBA. And I don't think Jordan's hurting for money by no means. So I was pretty surprised. But, look, he's getting up there in age, so he probably wants to do something different. And credit to him. I'm fine with it. But there was somebody, and again, I'm not saying that this is factual. I'm not buying it, because unless it comes out of Jordan's mouth, who knows what he's thinking, what he's saying. But this person floated this out there, and I saw it on the timeline, and then there are quotes, but it's from NBC sports executives. And that is even secondhand, these quotes that are coming from. So there's a lot that I'm like not really buying into it. But if this is truly why Jordan thinks or why one of the reasons why Michael Jordan is coming back or coming to television for the first time since he's been playing, I would be shocked. But apparently he wants to come back because he thinks that the argument about him being the GOAT is so toxic and so just as far as wrong and to these players of now, that he wants to come out here and really set the record straight. I read a quote that said, people talk about me like I've never missed a game. I did. Most part, he did play majority of 95% of his games in his career. He was never hurt, so on and so forth. But according to MJ, he's tired of people using him as a weapon to discredit the generations that came after him. And I don't know if this is going to be true, but you know what? It would be pretty cool in my mind. I would respect it. I would like it. It would be, because again, Jordan could get up there and he can go Shaq. He can go Chuck. It's my world. Shut up. I know more than you. I didn't think he would. I honestly didn't think Michael Jordan would be good on television, to be honest with you. He's kind of calm and low key. I don't know. That's just one man's take. We'll see how it plays out. But again, if that's what he's going to do and one of the reasons why he wants to come and be in front of a television set, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that the LeBron versus MJ GOAT debate is as toxic as it comes. I also find it hard to believe that Michael Jordan has kind of is being motivated by his moral compass to put a stop to this at this point in the game. I just don't quite think that is probably the case. What I think there might be some truth in there, and Carmelo was kind of talking about this on PG's podcast yesterday, that he doesn't like kind of the dialogue of basketball nowadays. And we've kind of seen the media market be very diluted with the Skip Baylesses of the world and all this, like, having the clickbait headlines and making these outrageous claims as kind of leading things rather than what are the actual X's and O's? Why is this play happening? Why is this team able to generate this look? So I think there could be something to the truth of Michael Jordan wanting to swing the pendulum back in that direction. And to put things on all on the table here, this has not just been the random media members make this. This is the Shaqs that have done this. There's plenty of other examples of that as well. So maybe that might motivate him a little bit more. We'll see what he ultimately has to say. I would have to hear that have to come directly out of Jordan's mouth for me to kind of believe that to be the case there. But I am sick of the Jordan versus MJ debates, and I've never seen a single person change their mind when having one of those arguments either.
Yeah, LeBron's still doing it, and it's had moments on me where I'm like, man, how could you sit there and say that LeBron's career wasn't, LeBron is just incredible at 40, still doing it. And
also
60.
barely misses games. I know you snuck that in there on Jordan. LeBron as well.
LeBron's the truth. You're right. Like, again, it's 1A, 1B. I don't have an issue if you sit there and tell me that you'll take LeBron over MJ. Because, again, head to head, LeBron's got the size advantage, man. It would be really tough for him to beat him. But, again, it's not 1 versus 1 here or 1-on-1. We're talking about just NBA careers. But one of the other things that came out from this medium here, and again, I'm not too familiar with this report that put it out there, whether it's true or not. It's still a little fodder. Have some fun with it. But he said some of Jordan's most loyal fans are already spinning the news as a victory lap for nostalgia. Yeah, I was. I can't wait to see those old school NBC games where, he's going up against the Lakers and the Trailblazers with the, I can't believe I'm hitting all these 3-pointers. He said, Mike told us flat out, in quotes, said an associate close to production, if hearing it from him is what takes for these fans to stop disrespecting guys like LeBron, Steph, or even Harden, then so be it. He wants the game to move forward. I don't think people disrespect Steph because of Jordan. I don't think people disrespect James Harden because of Jordan. LeBron, yes. But the other guys, I didn't really think that was factual. Again, there's outliers, of course, but Steph is universally loved, man.
For sure. I don't think that the James Harden stand should be measuring that playoff resume against Michael Jordan. I will say that. But I mean, I'll speak for myself on this. Like, I popped in this world in 1999 here. Did not get to experience like the heyday of Michael Jordan. I'm looking forward to like hearing what he has to say and getting kind of a more up close view of who he is there. That like sort of my experience for him in the public eye have been pretty minimal. And like my first real memory of him like speaking all this was back when he was operating as the Bobcats GM or Hornets GM now. Like that's kind of the only Michael Jordan that I've seen here outside of course, watching all the documentaries and clips and all the back into the day stuff. So I think it will be cool for people like me who have not been able to, see who Michael Jordan really is on full display. So we'll see how much he cares, how much he makes the most of this and like what, how into this Michael Jordan truly is. But it could end up being very cool here.
Yeah, The Last Dance was pretty damn good.
Very.
But that was really one of the first times that since his playing days that he opened up. And maybe people haven't heard of it, but it was a series on ESPN called The Last Dance. Yeah. Pandemic pushed it up.
Oh yeah.
I still watch it. It was on, matter of fact, over the weekend, and I was watching it. It's great job on that documentary / series that they put up. All right, great job here, Sean Bernard. Be sure to follow him on all things socials. One winner for tonight. Are we going with the Pacers?
We are. Pacers money line. We're laying it down. Lay the -135 just to give yourself a little bit of peace of mind, but I don't think you should have any fear dropping the -2.5 either.
I'm with you on that one. DK Network is where you can find Sean Bernard's great content. Of course, covers the Sixers and the association for us here on The Gambler. Be sure to follow him on all things social. Sean, good luck on all your plays, everybody. Once again, if you missed anything, you can find all of our podcasts available at foxphlgambler.com.